What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Redriveraviation. Hope you're on a fantastic day today. And today we have the 23rd anniversary of the September 2011-2001 terrorist attacks. This is always an important topic to talk about here on my channel. As you all know, we've done this for several years now, and I always think it's really important, obviously, considering the magnitude of this event and, obviously, how unfortunate it is. So today we're going to talk about it. So once again, I hope all of you are doing wonderful. With that being said, let's go ahead and get started with what we have. So here is an updated graphic from the previous one I've used, obviously commemorating the 4 aircraft involved. But more importantly, I really like this comment that came from MSF Views. He said, on this day, 23 years ago, America changed forever. The world changed forever. 9/11 was one of the darkest days in our nation's history. We lost a total of 2,977 people on that day. We lost 343 fighter fighters, 23 NYPD, 37 PAPD, and 8 paramedics and EMTs. We'll never forget the heroes who's paid and will continue to pay the ultimate sacrifice for the bravery of everyone that day. We will never forget. And I think that's really awesome to recognize, obviously the distribution, how important that is to think about. Obviously it's not every day that we go out there thinking, that 343 fighter fighters are working for us. Obviously it's a back thought in the back of our minds and an afterthought, but really thinking about it in that perspective, I think is really helpful. And, once again, really recognizes how important it is for everybody who pays the ultimate sacrifice. And that goes for every department in life. Obviously everyone that's in the Army or whatever it is, it's so important to think about that. So I really appreciate that comment from Microsoft Flight Simulator Views. I mean, it's really important and once again has a very meaningful purpose there. But I also want to recognize, obviously, all the families and everybody else that was affected directly or indirectly from these events. Obviously, nobody ever thinks, or at least from my perspective, I don't think many people would think about, that even being a reality. People usually are more down to earth than even thinking about considering an event like this. So I think it's definitely really important to think about all these different perspectives. And once again, everybody that was involved, it's just really, really unfortunate to think about that. There were so many people that were joyfully going to work and enjoying what they were doing 23 years ago, which is, that's insane that it was 23 years ago. Oh man, that's crazy. I wasn't even alive, obviously, but still even thinking about that, So yeah, it's crazy. Just really tough. My mom has a story where she was hanging out with my grandpa, actually, having lunch one day, and they were watching the TV. There wasn't as many at that time, but they did have a TV in that restaurant, and she saw, obviously this coming on the news, and it was just really crazy to hear about, and her reaction, obviously, and grandfather's as well, and everybody else that was involved. So again, it's just crazy to think about that, and how the various ways that news spreads, and it's just crazy. But what I can say is that I'm super glad to see that we've implemented some very important metrics since this event, like obviously TSA, which is a really important piece of the puzzle now, obviously considering, what happened here, to make sure that there's not going to be any issues. It's obviously really important that TSA got implemented the way that it did, and, all the other pieces to the puzzle. So, there has been substantial change since then, but at the same time, that doesn't take away from what happened in 2001 and what's, important at that time. So I definitely want to recognize it from all perspectives in that regard. Unfortunately, the wiki is kind of the best place to refer to for various graphics, which isn't the end of the world. I know it's not the most reputable source, but, for the purposes of what we're doing here, I think it'll work pretty well. This has a really good write-up about pretty much any piece of the puzzle you'd like to know about, and it's pretty sensitive, so I won't go into each and every piece of it, but what I will do is, go a little bit more into the flight portions of all of it. So let's go ahead and take all that. Also, the people that were injured as well, this number is definitely very alarming, so I want to recognize everybody there as well, and obviously permanent after effects from those injuries as well. So, but obviously, there's so many people that were directly and indirectly affected from this event. So I want to recognize each and every one of those individuals, because obviously, like I said, many of them were probably joyful, having a great day, and, just living life to its fullest potential, and, completely indirectly affected by this event. So yeah, it's really crazy to think about. Okay, moving on, let's go ahead and take a look at some of the flight graphics here. So obviously, here's where we have the various stages of the planning, which is just, I hate thinking about that. But going into each and every flight, particularly American Airlines Flight 11 was a Boeing 767-200. This aircraft was departing Boston Logan Airport at 8 a.m. and just 45 minutes later, so it crashed. Really, really unfortunate. So out of that, obviously, you had the crew, the passengers, and then you had the ground fatalities as well, which is really unfortunate to think about. And also keep in mind that these numbers, obviously 767-200 holds more than 76 passengers, but at this time it was not, standardized for higher load factors. So that's why these numbers are a little bit lower. But obviously for 2,600 fatalities between this American Airlines 767 and the United Airlines 767, which departed just 15 minutes later at 8:14, and then crashed again just strategically 15 minutes afterward at 9 o'clock. So you can see here, this was on the South Tower, and then this was on the North Tower. And also really unfortunate to think about this being floors 93 to 99, and this being 77 to 85. It's a really tough feeling to think about being that high up in any sort of building, and to think about what do you do at that moment? That's tough. That's a heartbreaker in my opinion. But obviously, as you can tell, that puts us to a total of 2,763 right there. And then we get into the other two with American Airlines Flight 77, which is a Boeing 757. This departed just 6 minutes after 8:20, and it crashed at 9:37 a.m., leaving Washington Dulles Airport. Keep in mind, all these flights were bound for California, 3 of them to LAX, and this was into the west wall of the Pentagon. So, it's a tough feeling. This had 53 passengers on board and 125 fatalities on the ground, and the 5 hijackers along with the 6 crew brings the total of that up to 189, which just is it's a heartbreaker. And then lastly, United Airlines Flight 93 was a 757-200. This left at 8:42, so substantially the way there from Newark Airport going to San Francisco, and this ended up obviously being the field incident with 70 crew, 33 passengers, and 4 hijackers for 44 total. And I applaud the efforts of the passengers for making every effort that they could on that one to save it to the best of their abilities. So that's definitely, substantial to think about. But that leaves us with 33 crew, 213 passengers. That's 2,731 people on the ground for 19 hijackers. Brings us to just slightly under 3,000 total fatalities, 2,996. Okay, so each and every individual crash you can be seen here. Obviously, extremely sensitive pictures, so I'm not going to dive too much into the pieces on that, but obviously there's plenty of reading here, so you're welcome to read as much or as little as you want. And greatly appreciate, once again, the rescue efforts that were made towards this tragic event. Really awesome that New York Fire Department was able to deploy those 200 units. And once again, it's great to think about their efforts, them always working. It's crazy to think right now that there's people working to be ready just in case any tragic events happen. So I applaud everybody that's always doing that. And it's always really important to think about those individuals along with everybody else that's making a difference in this world right now. So I thank each and every one of those individuals because their efforts do not go unrecognized. And then you can see the reactions and all the pieces to the puzzle. Again, it's a pretty sensitive situation, so it's tough to go too much into detail on any of it. But of course, I always want to recognize it, considering, how drastic of an event this was, and the after effects as well. But obviously, it changed the world, aviation, and the United States as a whole for many years to come. Again, this is 23 years ago now, so considering the substantial changes that have took place since are super important. There's a long list of various other articles that are here regarding other similar events and corresponding situations. So, and there appears to be, I think, 400, maybe 500 references on here, which is crazy. They got a total of 530 references. So if you're interested in detail, you can certainly get into it. There's no doubt about that. So again, it's a really unfortunate situation. I just always think that's worthy of recognizing and obviously giving that appropriate commemoration to. So that being said, I'm going to give about a 15-second moment of silence for everyone here, and then we'll conclude today's video. Okay, everyone. So, yeah, this is once again a really tough video to make as always, but I always think it's very, very important to recognize what happened here and obviously, you know, what it meant for aviation in the United States and once again the world. So once again, I hope all of you are doing fantastic. This is obviously a very tough one to talk about, but you know, it's tough. But I always appreciate everybody that's working in our country and around the world to do their best to prevent events like this. And it's just a tough one to think about as always. So with that being said, I hope all of you stay safe, continue to do what you do best, do what you love and love what you do, stay safe. And until our next video, hope all of you continue to do great and be careful out there. Thank you all so much and take care, everyone.